for me, it's like I've got goals to where it's like I only want to work in my businesses for a few hours a week. When I say a few hours, I'm talking about maybe 10 hours max.
Running a business, the financial literacy wasn't there. So what was that conversion like? Were you kind of just winging it, just doing this solopreneur by yourself?
Wholesaling for me, it's been life-changing.
Justin, man, it's been a while since we've even seen each other and talked and all of that type of stuff. And you know my premise, the things that I enjoy talking about as a coach, as a high performance and life coach, love to cover the areas of spirituality, health, and just a full gamut, right?
Yep.
And you're an entrepreneur. You had a 9-to-5 before. Let's start there.
Okay.
What did life look for you? What did life look like for you before becoming an entrepreneur?
Ooh, that's a good question, man. So before entrepreneurship started in 2014 for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working as a forklift operator in a warehouse for PVH. I remember during those times, I got married in 2012, had my first daughter, and I remember just trying to climb that corporate ladder, right? And so I was in that rat race. The problem was I didn't have a bachelor's degree. I only had my associate's degree. And working at PVH, in order to get into that management level, you have to have a bachelor's degree. And so I didn't want to go back to school because I was already in debt with student loans. I didn't enjoy school. It wasn't for me. I wanted to just jump right into that corporate position. And so what happened was I remember in 2014, it was May 2014. I had to sit down and really have like a reality check, so to speak, and ask myself, like, Justin, what are we doing here? Right? Because bought my first house at 25, got married, got my first kid, and I was like, life has got to be better financially for me, and this can't be it. Right? I'm not here to go through life to be a forklift operator.
Isn't it interesting that for most people that I talk to, that like they typically get to that place where it's like there just has to be more to life.
Yeah.
You know? And so you've gotten to this point, you're like, this can't be it. What happens next?
Yeah, so I had that reality check, and I remember I talked to my wife and I said, listen, you know, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I believe in myself. I'm going to start my own business. And she was like, okay. She was like, what type of business are we going to start?
I was going to ask the same thing.
And so growing up, I grew up with a father who was in construction. He was a general superintendent for a couple of major construction companies.
Yeah.
And so I grew up around construction. And my father also had a side business as a handyman, going out and, you know, replacing doors, whatever people needed done at their house.
Is that what kind of inspired you to even think like I should start my own business?
Not really. Kind of backtracking here. I grew up wanting to be an NFL player. Ever since I was 7 years old, I played tackle football.
Wow.
And
I didn't know that about you.
By the time I was 10, I became really good at it. So where people would come up to my parents and they say, hey, your kid has something special. And I'm like, he can make it big in football. And so whenever, you know, at school, they ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? I always told people I'm going to be an NFL player. Yeah. And they're like, well, okay, well, if you don't make it to the NFL, what's your backup plan? I said, I'm going to be an NFL player.
So hold on. Did they try to make you a doctor, a lawyer?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
This is what they do in schools, right?
Yeah.
Like they mold you to be what they think you should be and nothing else.
Exactly.
Wow. Yeah.
So I grew up telling everyone to be an NFL player, and reality check came in when I was 21, and I had 2 reconstructive shoulder surgeries.
Oh, man.
And so it was a massive setback. And so physically, I wasn't able to compete at a level that I needed to compete at. And so because of that, and I actually talk about this, been talking about this recently with my wife, right? That to me, I don't know if I want to call it a setback, but it it kind of messed me up in my early 20s because all I thought about was football.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have a backup plan. And when that reality came that the NFL wasn't going to happen, I had to sit back and say, well, what are we doing here?
Wow.
And
what was life like during that time?
Lost, man. Didn't have any kind of clarity, no purpose. Didn't know what I was doing. I was just winging it in life.
Wow.
Lived with my parents until I was 25. And then I remember at 24, I had gotten out of a relationship and I was still living with my parents. And I said, okay, Justin, like talking to myself, what are we doing here? Like, we got to start setting some goals here. You're 24. You're still living at home. What are we doing here? And I remember I sat with my dad and I told him, I was like, I want to own my first house at 25. And he was like, what are we going to do to get there? And that's when I got the job at PVH as a forklift operator, because I knew at least having a steady income was going to allow me to go purchase a house. But fast forward, working that job, I was miserable, man. I was lost, trying to figure life out. We didn't have all the resources that we have today as far as like YouTube and social media to teach us all the different ways to make money.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I was going based off the information that my current circle had, right? Which is go back, get your degree, and be miserable trying to climb that corporate ladder. And something just kind of like snapped in me in May of 2014 to where I started my own business, and it was a handyman business.
Wow.
And that evolved into a deck and fence business. And eventually in 2018, I started doing work for an investor out of Miami that was buying houses in College Park, Georgia. And I asked him, I was like, you know, how does a guy like me that has bad credit, is broke as hell, get to where you're at?
Speak it, man. And
he was like, look into wholesaling. And I was like, what is wholesaling? And he told me a little bit about it.
Yeah.
He's real open, real cool. He was drinking a Budweiser when we were talking. So
he's a little
friendly.
loose.
Yeah. So I went home that night, got on YouTube, and I turned into a nerd.
Wow.
And I just nerded out, and I learned about wholesaling. And then 3 weeks later, I got my first property under contract.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
The first property under contract in Decatur, Georgia. And 2 weeks after that, we were at the closing table, and I made $9,000.
Oh my god!
And that was like the gateway drug. It got me hooked. I was like, "Holy smokes! Like, this works.
Yeah,
this could be my ticket to financial freedom." And
so
it's never looked back.
So I mean, amazing story where you've kind of just climbed and climbed and climbed. Let's go back to something you said that was so good, bro. We talked about your environment. And how your environment, you just did what people around you did. Yep. How important do you believe your environment really is?
Oh my gosh, it's everything, man. It's the reason why I'm at where I'm at today. Right? I've got guys like you, like Abraham, freaking Nitton, and surrounding yourself with those like-minded individuals that have those same type of aspirations, same type of goals, to get to where you want to be at. Yeah, you feed off that energy from everybody, right? Yeah. And it's almost like a mini mastermind when you get around each other and you start talking about each other's problems. How are you doing to adjust things? What are your goals? Yeah. That stuff is so crucial in life, man. I don't think people understand the importance of relationships.
See, that's what I want to highlight here, because, people are probably doing a bunch of reels like, you got to find the right environment, get in the right room. And so it almost sounds cliche at this point, right? Yeah. But it's literally impossible. And your story, without you even really knowing it, you just became a product of your environment because it's the default thing to do. Yeah. And how many people really go through life where they get a setback, something happens in their life, and the only thing that's left for them to do is what other people around them are doing. Yeah. And so there's a lot of doctors right now that are doctors because their parents said you should be a doctor. Yep. They're lawyers. They're doing these prestigious jobs, policemen, simply because it was what people do. Yeah. And the opposite is also true. Drug dealers, right? I seen dad selling dope. This is the cool thing. This is what the guys on the blocks, they do. And so you just become a product of your environment. And that happened to you, but you were able to break out of it because the pain and the frustration as to what you were doing, because you knew you had so much more inside, came out. And so you were able to start your first company, the decking company, that took you to meeting this other person. Matter of fact, you started like 2 or 3 other companies in between that time. But this is why I love talking about path to purpose so much, or living on purpose, because you don't have to always have it figured out.
Right.
You kind of just started in that field, just trying to make it work until you met this guy that opened you up to wholesaling.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about wholesaling and what is wholesaling for the person that's listening? Quick overview, and like, how did life change for you wholesaling?
Yeah, so real quick, wholesaling is basically when you go and you find a distressed property and you were basically the middleman. So let's say I find 123 Main Street and, you know, Mr. John has his property that he doesn't want to sell through a realtor on market. He wants to do a quick sale because maybe he's going through some type of financial burden, right? So the wholesaler's job is to identify the problem and work a deal with the homeowner, right? And let's say we get that property 123 Main Street under contract for $100,000. It's my job as a wholesaler to take that contract and market that contract to an end buyer that wants to pay, let's say, $110,000, and I make the difference. That would be $10,000.
Right.
Wholesaling for me, man, it's
you don't need a license to do it.
No, you don't need any kind of license to do it.
Yep.
But wholesaling for me, it's been life changing. It has completely changed my life financially and mentally. Before, when I was running the deck and fence business, I had no kind of like financial literacy. I had no business literacy. And when you get into wholesaling, if you want to get into that top level of like that $1 million+ a year, you have to learn how to run a business. And a lot of people understand that wholesaling is a sales and marketing business, right? You got to know how to implement SOPs, but most importantly, you got to know how to be a good leader if you're going to have a team. Yeah. And I don't think people understand that when it comes to things like leadership, like you got to be like a servant type of leader, right? Like you're there to serve.
What does that mean? Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah. So when you're a servant type of leader, you're there to serve your employees and your organization. You get a lot of people that try to lead by intimidation or with fear, right? And that's the wrong way to lead an organization. You're gonna have high overturn, and eventually you're gonna end up going bankrupt because you don't know how to lead people. You don't know how to lead an organization. So wholesaling taught me all the fundamental things that I needed to know on how to run a business. Yeah. And what's happened within the last year is like a light bulb was went off, and I'm like, man, I've got these skill sets that I've learned from wholesale and real estate. I can apply this to any kind of other business, whether if I go buy a business or go start a business, right?
Hold on. So before you go there, because I see where we're going, because you're a serial entrepreneur now.
Yes.
And so what was the conversion like from having a 9-to-5 mindset, going to work, doing the forklifting to now becoming a business owner? So you started with a few other businesses where you say you didn't have the paradigms. I like to say paradigms because that's the habits and behaviors, right? Yep. So you didn't have the right habits in running a business. The financial literacy wasn't there. So what was that conversion like? Were you kind of just winging it, just doing this solopreneur by yourself kind of thing up until wholesaling and things started to change? Talk to me about some of the habits that you needed to implement.
Dude, I was completely winging it. I didn't know what the hell I was doing when I was running the deck and fence business. And once I got into real estate wholesaling, what happens is you start going to events, you start networking with like-minded individuals.
There you go with environment again.
Exactly. Yeah. You start going to masterminds. So you surround yourself in the right environment and you start learning from these people. Yeah. Right? Like, what did you do to have a successful organization? How did you go from being a hustler to a CEO? Right? Because a lot of people think that they have a business. Yeah. but they don't understand if you're still working in the business, you don't have an actual business. You're just hustling at this point.
Talk about it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that if you enjoy operating like that. But for me, it's like I've got goals to where it's like I only want to work in my businesses for a few hours a week. When I say a few hours, I'm talking about maybe 10 hours max.
Let's talk about that real quick, because most people say they want to start a business to have financial freedom and end up becoming an employee of their business. Yeah. Right? And they lose sight of why they even started the business. Yeah. And so talk a little bit more about setting your goals that you had and the amount of hours, because it sounds like you were very clear as to how much time you want to spend in your business. What made you kind of think about it? Was it the masterminds? Like, what made you even think like, hey, this is what I want?
So like a lot of other people, when I got into wholesaling, I got into it not for the right reasons. Sure. I got into it for money. Yeah. Right. And a lot of people, whenever they're transitioning from a 9-to-5 to becoming an entrepreneur, it's for that reason, right? They're not happy at their current 9-to-5 and they desire more. And they feel like if I go start a business, that's going to help me achieve financial freedom. What they don't understand is the sacrifice that it takes when you start a business.
It takes sacrifice?
Oh my gosh, massive sacrifice. When you work a 9-to-5, you got to set time. It's, from 9 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock PM. I have to commit and put in hours with this business. Yeah. After that, I'm free to go do whatever I do. Yeah. When you go start a business, it doesn't work like that. Yeah. If you start a business, it's from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep. And a lot of people don't understand that. And what happens is they get in the hamster wheel and they become a slave to their own business. Yeah. Right. And it's because they don't have financial literacy. They don't have business literacy. And so for me, when I got into wholesaling, I was just like that in the beginning. I did it for the money. And it wasn't until I started putting myself in those rooms and learning from the high level people that were only working. When I heard people like Max Maxwell, who was only working a few hours a week in his wholesale business, but making a ton of money. I'm like, how? Yeah. How is that possible? Yeah. Right. And once you start surrounding yourself with those people and learning the strategies and the tactics that they took in order to achieve that type of level of success, that's when everything kind of switches. Right. And you start to say, okay, what are the real goals here? Like, what are we trying to achieve here? Yeah, we want to make money, but the most important thing is happiness, right? If we're not happy in what we're doing, why are we doing it?
Man,
you know what I mean?
You're hitting on something that's a key, like so key to me in terms of being on purpose, right? No matter what you do, and doing business on purpose, doing life on purpose, because without that purpose, then you start asking yourself, why? Why am I doing this? Hey guys, I hope you're getting incredible value from this podcast. Now, don't forget to subscribe, like this page, but also follow our Instagram page for a lot more gems. No, like seriously, go in the description below and do it now. Now back to this episode. Yeah. But before we even go there, I want to go back a little bit, because you talked about coming from your 9-to-5, and I just, the reason why I'm asking these questions is because I want to help any 9-to-5er right now. Doesn't matter if you're in corporate level, a CEO of a 9-to-5 company. This is something that I think affects everyone. Yeah. You leave your 9-to-5, you become an entrepreneur. You go from being told what to do to now having to make your own schedule and productivity. As a high performance coach, this is something that I help people navigate all the time, because they've never had to set their own schedule with the most important things to do. And you were able to navigate that. How?
Yeah. So when I started, I was very unorganized. And when you're unorganized, that's when the stress really sets in, and you start to say, WTF, like, what are we doing here, right? Yeah. And to be honest with you, man, when I first became an entrepreneur with the deck and fence business, there was times where I was like, dude, I think I'm going to go back to a 9-to-5 just because I was so miserable trying to run a business, trying to figure things out. But as far as like, it's going to, I keep going back to the same thing. What I'm telling you, learning from others that have already accomplished it, right?
Yeah.
Like there's no reason to reinvent the wheel, right? And a lot of people bang their head against the wall and get brain damage because they're trying to figure things out on their own, right?
Yeah.
And it's so important to get in the rooms with the people that have accomplished the things that you want to accomplish and learn from them. You are skipping the line when you learn from those people, right? Yeah. And I don't mean go spend $50, $75, $100,000 on a mastermind. You don't have to do that.
Yeah.
There are people in your own backyard that you can find that have achieved the level of success that you want to achieve.
That's for sure.
And you got to find a way, how can I bring value to that person in order to learn how they got to the level that they're at, so that way I can cut the line and not be miserable anymore and be happy. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Dude, so finding someone in your own backyard takes someone with extreme desire to go out and try to find that person that is willing to help them and teach them. And here people start fighting their own thoughts, their own paradigms, because what do they think? They think that rich people or successful people don't like helping someone that doesn't know, right? And it's so not the truth, because what I've seen and becoming an entrepreneur, rich people actually loves helping a lot more than I thought. This was a belief that just was not true. This was a limiting belief, you know? And so rich people, they're amazing. They're helpful. They bring you in their homes. They really try to get you to level up, right? Yes. And here's so that's the free way. That's the hustler, man, I got to figure this out way. But then there's also the masterminds that have a paywall to them, right? Yep. They're the programs, they're the mentors that have a paywall to them. Yep. What I've seen, bro, and I feel like it's so disappointed. I want to hear your opinion, because this was once me. I didn't realize that money was keeping me back from making money. Yeah. I never realized that. Yeah. Me paying money, and I remember paying my first $4,000 to learn Amazon. That was the first set of money that I ever paid in coaching. But then I got that Amazon business to $30K a month. And so my mind was blown simply because I'm like, hold on. So all of my life, I've been told that you got to pay money. It's a scam, right? Those are the things that I've been told. And so now I'm at this place where I've finally jumped over the fence and I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. I paid it, and then I started making a lot of money. What's your thoughts on money keeping people back from making money?
I've spent probably, I mean, some people are going to be like, what the hell? Well, over the last, 2023? Last 2.5 years, I've spent probably $250,000 on mentorships and masterminds. And if I would have heard myself say that 3-4 years ago, I'd be like, you're a freaking idiot.
You're a dummy.
Crazy, but again, once you get into the rooms, you start to learn the power of getting into those other rooms that you got to pay for. Bro, there's a reason why there's a paywall there.
Dude, I can't wait for people to take my money anymore.
Right.
Like exactly. I'm like, who needs it? Who could give me the value that I need? Because if it is, I'm going from making $100,000 a year to learning how to make $100,000 a month, and I could pay this person $10,000. Like, what's the return on investment there?
Oh my gosh!
Like,
you can't even calculate it, dude.
Come on.
Yeah. I mean, so for instance, with the real estate wholesaling, right? I learned for free on YouTube, and the freeway taught me how to get 2 to 3 deals per month. Yep. But once I paid, I think my first mentorship, I paid $25,000. And I remember talking to my wife. We were both like hesitant. I was like, man, like I'm not at that level yet to where I'm making a ton of money. And like, this is a huge investment, right? Yep. But that's the key thing, investment. a lot of people look at paying into stuff as an expense, right?
Man.
And so we had that conversation, and, you know, shout out to my wife for always being supportive.
Yeah.
But she encouraged me to do it. She was like, it's time for you to start investing into yourself.
Wow.
And once I made that investment, man, that's when things just kind of took off.
Wow.
I mean, our first year in wholesaling, I think I made about $150, which is good money for the average individual.
Yeah.
But 2021, we made 1.2 million. And if it wasn't for me paying to get into the mentorship and learning how to go from hustler to CEO and how to properly run a real estate wholesale business, bro, I would have never got there.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And the key word here is investment. Right? People say all the time, and again, it sounds cliche, invest in yourself. But the thing with an investment is that you get a return. You get something back. You get more than you put in. And I just don't think people really understand the value of investing and investing in yourself.
Yeah.
Because that's a return that never ends.
Yeah.
Right. You may buy something that gives you a return for a period of time, but once you gain that knowledge, you can't give it back.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And so you can make this money forever. You spend money once, and now you could make money forever.
Yeah, it becomes repetitive because once I invest into that mentorship, within the first 2 months, I had already made that money back. You know what I mean? And so it paid for itself within the first couple of months. And the mentorship did not stop. It did not end. Yeah. I'm still part of that whole mentorship to this day.
And it keeps going.
Yeah, it keeps going. And then what happens is you become a success story. Now you're building a relationship with the person that started the mentorship. Yeah. And now y'all are talking about doing things together. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like you just keep leveling up.
So you become partners with your mentors.
Exactly.
And I think that's such a valuable gift where the people that you pay money to teach you then become your partners. They become your guide. They start off as your guide. They help you because you got to show that you have the ability to execute on the information, because the truth is a lot of people do get into programs and they don't execute. No, they don't do anything, and we could dive all the way into why, but that's me coaching. I'm not coaching today. I'm more interested in you.
Got you.
And so you talked about your wife supporting you, man, in that. I think that's like so valuable, because one of the main things for me, as you know, is doing business together with your wife and just kind of being on the same page. Talk about the relationship that you and your wife have, going from where you guys were to where you are today. What does that look like?
So I think that married men have an edge on single men. Married men, when you have a good supportive spouse, I should say married couples, when you have a good supportive spouse that supports you in whatever it is that you're trying to do, dude, it's like an edge on the competition. You know what I mean? It's like fuel. It's like rocket fuel. Because there's going to be times as an entrepreneur to where you're going to sit back and be in your own head and start questioning, stuff that you're doing. And being able to go to your spouse and have those conversations, those difficult conversations, right? Yeah. Because there's some difficult decisions you got to make as an entrepreneur that can affect the livelihood of your relationship.
What's one of those, I know people listening, what's one of those difficult decisions?
Money. Yeah. Investing into like a mentorship, right? And this is not a plug to try to get you guys to invest into to mentorships. It's just, this is the way that I found that it's catapulted me to success. Yeah. But having those hard conversations and talking to your spouse and saying, hey, listen, we don't have a whole lot of money in the account, but I want to invest $25,000 into this because I think it's going to take us there. And if you don't have that supportive spouse that believes in you and that decision, that can make or break you guys. You know what I mean?
I got to ask, because I know, especially like when I talk to some of my boys from the 9-to-5 world and even some in entrepreneurship, they're just different opinions. But I got to ask you this. Do you and your wife do your finances together? Like when money comes in, like how does finances work in the home, like as a married couple and entrepreneurs?
So we used to. She's aware of what goes on, but I pretty much handle all the finances. And now we have an accountant, we have a bookkeeper. Yeah. So we have the help, right? One of the benefits of our relationship is we know each other's roles, right? Oof. So as a married couple, when we started as entrepreneurship, it wasn't all, peas and carrots. It wasn't all smooth. Yeah. And we had to really figure out what is going to work for us, because I remember as an entrepreneur, I was weak-minded, and like when things would get tough, I would try to put the blame on her. And I would look at her and be like, you're not helping me doing X, Y, Z.
I need like
all you're doing is spending time with the kids and making sure they're good, but you're not helping me in the business.
I need a guilty button here.
And that was so stupid and selfish of me. I didn't understand. I was ignorant, right? And I was looking for like a cop out, someone to blame, right? Instead of being accountable. And so what happened was once I started to learn from the people that have already accomplished the things that, I want to accomplish, how if they have a spouse, like how did you guys figure out how to make stuff work, right? That's when we sat down and we had our conversation. Listen, you're going to take care of home, make sure the kids are good, and I'm going to go out, I'm going to kill and make sure we got food on the table and the bills are paid. Yeah. And when it's time to level up, we're going to come together. We're going to have a conversation. Hey, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think? For instance, before we got here today, we met with a life insurance rep. We're leveling up on the life insurance and infinite banking. Yeah. And she's present for those meetings, right?
So key things that's happening in the home, life decisions, she's included on what happens. Yes. In those.
I've gained her trust through the last couple of years. Right. With the financial decisions that I've been making.
Bro, we got to talk about gaining trust, because I think a lot of men, they want respect, and I'm guilty of this. I've done it, right? Where, as a man, we all desire respect from our wives. And we think that from the day we said I do, or even before, that respect is just supposed to be there. Yeah. What is this whole gaining trust thing, right? Because, and here's the argument that I used to make. I used to say, do you have to gain my love? Right? I used to, man, I'm coming at you, right? Yeah. Like, this is me and my wife. I'm like, you didn't have to gain my love. Why do I have to gain your trust? Yeah. Right? And I just had this naive thing about me. And we would always get into fights and arguments because I felt like she didn't trust me. And that's because she didn't. And we could go down all the like how she was raised and what she's seen as an example and all that type of stuff. But it didn't negate that I had to get out of my ego. Yeah. And gain her trust. Yeah. And so like it's really good to hear you talk about gaining her trust that then now allows you guys to be on the same page. Yeah. Yeah. It's my wife has always allowed me to navigate the ship. Have I made bad decisions in the past? Of course I have. Yeah. Right. But I've always been one to learn from my mistakes and I'll make them again. And because of that, over time, what she's seen through, we've been together for 12 years. Wow. It's married 11, been together for 12. And because she's seen the decisions that I've made over time, I've been able to gain that trust. But dude, if you don't have the trust with your spouse and when it comes to decision making, good luck. Dude, I'm telling you,
good luck.
Because that's one of the things that a lot of people come to me and ask me, like, hey, dude, how did you get you and your wife to do business together and all these types of things? And it really comes down to me having to prove that I'm worthy to be trusted.
It's a marathon, man. It's not going to happen overnight.
Come on.
It's literally a marathon of making good, wise decisions. Yes. Because when they see that you have a pattern now, You've had that paradigm shift, and you've created good habits where you have a pattern of making good decisions financially, and you've become financially literate. That's when they gain confidence, right? And once they gain that confidence, that's when you start to gain that trust.
Exactly.
And if you just keep little by little leveling up, they're gonna just freely let go. And they're not going to question anything.
Exactly. And why should your wife trust you when you said you're going to start working out and going to the gym and you're not even keeping the promises to yourself?
Yeah.
Simple things like that. Those are the things that's embodied in their subconscious, where it's like, he's not even doing the things that he said he's going to do. Why would I trust him with all of this money or to do these things? And then they wonder when they want to get into real estate, they want to get into like some of these bigger things in life or to leave their job. She's like, dude, no. Like, because in the back of her mind, she remembers all of the times you said you were going to do something and you didn't follow through.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so like this whole gaining trust thing is, well, how many times did he say he was going to do something and execute it?
Yeah.
How many times did he date night? All right. Like just being there. And so let's talk about that, because we've been talking about the money side of things and business side, and you guys have a great relationship when it comes to that. How do you balance or manage? I hate the word balance, but just for the sake of this conversation, how do you give 100% to your business and 100% to your family life? You got kids, you got your wife. Like, how does that work in your home?
It's still a work in progress. Knowing what's important. So my father passed away in January, and my dad was my best friend.
Wow.
And he was there for me heavily in my life growing up. I mean, he was a head coach for a baseball team, basketball, football. I mean, he would travel when I was in college playing football up to Iowa to go watch me play ball. Like, he was very involved in my life. And I remember having a conversation with my wife not too long ago and saying, I don't like how entrepreneurship is consuming me and keeping me absent from my family, right? And that's the other important thing of knowing how to go from hustler to CEO. Because if you're a slave to your business, your business is the only thing that's going to see you, right? Your family is not going to ever see you. You might be there physically, but mentally you're checked out, right? And I've been guilty, man, where I've allowed the business to consume me, or maybe something, major is going on in the business, whether it's good or bad. And physically I'm in the house, but mentally I'm checked out. And I remember going to my wife without her even having to, let me know, because I'm aware what's going on. Because when you start to see your kids grow up, you're like, damn, like,
where was I?
Yeah. You know what I mean? And so I had that talk with her. I was like, hey, like, I got to be more present mentally. What can we do to help me get there? And she's like, Justin, you're going to have to figure that out, because it's the business that's consuming you. Right. And one of the things I've been doing now is 6 o'clock, dude, it's hard to get me on the phone. Whether it's a business call or whatever the case may be. Because by 6 o'clock, the kids are either in jiu-jitsu or they're done with homework and they want my attention. And if I don't start giving the attention now, 10, 7, and 6 years old, it's going to hurt me, not them. It's going to hurt me in the long run, because they're going to remember, hey, dad was mentally checked out when we were younger and wasn't there. Yeah, he was a good provider, but just because you're a good provider and making sure they're good financially doesn't make you a good father, right? Like, what type of lessons are you teaching your kids, right? How are you really presently there having those conversations, those heavy conversations with your children to make sure that they're good? And when I say good, I don't just mean like physically. I mean mentally. Right? Because that's how you make sure someone's good mentally, is by having those conversations and giving them guidance, giving them mentorship. Right? So that way they know that they can depend on you, and they know that their father is present. And that's something I've been working on massively, man.
Dude, so there's a common thread here with investing, because you're investing your time with them to get a return later on. Mm-hmm. Right? Because here's what happens, and this is where I think men don't see down the road, where if you don't invest this time with your wife, with your kids now, there's a void.
Yeah.
There's a void that happens. And so when you have kids grown up seeking men on the outside, because there's a void that was never filled.
Yeah.
And so even with parents who, where the father is absent from a home or anything like that, that's essentially what's happening. It's them trying to have this void that's filled. And how tragic is it for a father to be home and there's still that void, because we're so busy trying to provide for the family and to be financially free for them, but we lose them in the process.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I also think that this is one of the major reasons why most people don't want to do business, because they've seen how it has separated families. And so it's like, well, I don't want to do that, because I've seen my father or my mother work so hard that they were absent from me.
Yeah.
And so why would I want to do the same thing?
Yeah.
You know, and so, man, I commend you for even being aware of something like this, because this is really major for me, as an entrepreneur, as a leader, as a coach, as a speaker, everything. Like, my premise is family first, God first, and then it's my wife and family, right? But then there are the entrepreneurs who believe that what they have to do is, like, they put their family after, man.
Yeah,
like,
that's the problem, man. Is that's what they think, right? They think that's what has to be done. That's not how it has to go.
Yeah.
And a lot of the reasons, like, I haven't been shooting a ton of content lately, right? And a lot of the reason is because of my family, right? So through the loss and tragedy of losing my dad, I'm getting through the grievance part, and it's making me more aware of the importance of being present with my children, because I reflect on the moments of my dad. And what happens when you reflect is you start to think about how much your dad was there for you. And you're like, okay, am I doing the same things he was doing into my kid's life? No. We got to fix that.
Wow.
Right? And so that's a lot of the reason I'm putting about a lot of content lately is because there's nothing more important. We talk business, we talk relationships. Nothing is more important than your family. There's not a single thing, dude.
Bro, you're hitting a soft spot for me, because you may know, the viewers, people that's listening may not know that I lost my first marriage because I was after the American dream. I was after the American dream, and I wasn't sensitive enough to know when to slow down, to be present at home. That's it in a nutshell. Like, if I had to take accountability, that's it in a nutshell, right? And so that's one of the reasons why now I put the most important thing first, because getting the bag, you could always get the bag.
Yes.
Why not just get the bag together?
Yep.
You know what I mean? Just get the bag together. And that's the approach that I take, because now I invest so much time with my wife just to make sure that we're good, that she's good, that everything is good, and not just only from business, but also from just the love, you know, like, and real raw emotions, like dating each other, having fun together, like, and building a culture. Really, that's the main thing. Like, what's your family culture like? That's really important to me. My wife and I, we do a lot of fun things together, and that's really important to have, especially as an entrepreneur. There are 9-to-5ers who miss out on this as well, but especially as an entrepreneur. And so I want to commend you, man, for being present, for being who you are, you know, because you are working on the most important things in your life right now that is going to matter as an investment in the future.
I appreciate that.
You know? Yeah. So, man, thank you for being on this podcast and sharing, because what I want to happen here is for someone who's still at their 9-to-5, an entrepreneur who's already working, that don't have some of the things that we talk about, don't have some of the priorities, or just trying to leave their job, just understanding what that process really looks like, legit, real, raw, like, you know, the things that work, right? Like, let's just pull the shade back and talk about it. And you were able to do that really, really well, man.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. I just want to say, you know, one more thing. There's, in my opinion, 4 foundational things to be a successful entrepreneur, right? That's God, health, mindset, family.
Yep.
And I don't think people understand that if you don't have the foundation down and laid right, you're going to be struggling as an entrepreneur. I cannot tell you how much just fixing one of those foundational things in my life, health, has helped me tremendously. Imagine if you have all 4 of those things figured out, right? That's the foundational things that you need to be a successful entrepreneur.
100%. 100%. And people try to work on one of those things at a time versus like just leveling up across all those pillars. And so super appreciate that last point, man. I got one more question for you.
All right.
And it's about men and especially entrepreneurs. What do you think about men who post their significant other or don't post their significant other on social media? What's your opinion on that?
I don't think it's bad either way. I guess it depends on what's the intent.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And what are you posting? Right. Because I post a lot on myself, which is all business related, but there's times I post on my kids, I post on my wife. And that's just because I know the importance of being open and putting out content.
Sure.
All right. Letting people know who you are.
Yeah.
What it is that you're about. What it is that you like. All right. What do you want in life?
Yeah.
But in regards to your question, I don't know if I have much of an opinion on it, dude, to be honest. I don't think it's a bad thing if you're doing it with the right intention. I guess it just depends on what is your intention of posting your significant other.
Yeah.
And what is the intention if you're not going to post your significant other at all? Now that I'm talking about it, it's probably a little bit more sketchy if you're married to have a significant other, and it looks as if on social media you're single. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a sketchy thing. Dude. I see it a lot, dude, with men and women.
Yeah.
And it's like you see people half naked or no shirt off, whatever the case may be. Little do they know that person is married. Yeah. And they're putting out desirable, photos. So that's a whole rabbit hole conversation.
It's a whole rabbit hole, man. I mean, what is success without showing the most successful part of your life?
Exactly.
Just saying, man.
Yeah.
Just thank you, bro.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate you.
I appreciate you, man.
Amazing.
Yes, sir.